What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast. It's Waiver Wire Queen. If you are looking for some great ads to consider going into week 2 of the fantasy football season, then you are in the right place. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have a lot of great content, which is going to help you throughout your fantasy football season so you compete at the highest level and stay ahead of your competition and all of that good stuff. Let's talk about some great waiver wire ads. We're going to start with quarterbacks. This week was crazy as hell, as you all know, and it's time to come up with some plan B. Some things didn't go well, injuries, a lot of things, and it's time to decide on some quarterbacks. So Carson Wentz had a hell of a game. He had a hell of a game, and he has a good match going into week 2 against the Detroit Lions, who gave up a whole lot of daggone points to the Eagles, made Jalen Hurts look a little bit more better than what he looked last year, even though he was still a little bit inaccurate. But nonetheless, this is going to be a really good matchup for Carson Wentz. So if you can put that claim in for Carson Wentz, you really need to do so and take advantage of this enticing matchup. If you don't want to take a chance in your fantasy league, then definitely in DFS. He had an extremely good week. 41 attempts, 27 passes completed, 313 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's getting everyone involved. Curtis Samuel looked like he came to play. The young rookie wide receiver Dotson, Antonio Gibson, everybody was involved, and Carson Wentz looked very, very. And again, Carson Wentz is probably the best option for you to consider adding at the quarterback position this week in fantasy football. So again, put your claim in for him. Jameis Winston with the Saints was looking a little bit shaky early on versus the Falcons, but put together a very good game in order to come back and end up beating the Falcons. We all know the Falcons love giving away Christmas gifts and giving up games, and they continue that trend week 1. The Saints looked good. Landry played well. Michael Thomas had 2 touchdowns. Chris Olave got involved with a few receptions. Taysom Hill stole a show from Alvin Kamara. I will tell you, on offense, Alvin Kamara was the only Saint who really didn't put a good game together. Winston has a tough matchup week 2 versus Tampa, and we already know what Tampa did to Dak Prescott and the Cowboys last night, made them look really, really bad. However, he has some better matchups coming on. He's going to have the Seahawks, Cincinnati, the Cardinals, the Raiders. Consider this. The Falcons will be one of the defenses Winston will suit up again later on in this season, in the postseason. So those are things you should factor in. And so if you can put a claim for him and just sit him week 2, because I don't recommend starting him week 2 versus Tampa, he will be a very good ad. He had a solid game versus the Falcons. 34 attempts, 23 passes completed, 269 yards and 2 touchdowns. Look sharp. And I am very happy for him. And also, I am happy for Michael Thomas, y'all. Another great option at the quarterback position is Matt Ryan. Although, I will tell you this, he didn't play as well as I expected him to play. And the Colts really should have been able to beat Houston, but obviously the Texans look like a much improved team, hence the tie. And with Matt Ryan, again, he's going to have a lot of opportunities to produce in a fantasy capacity, because, hell, if you're getting the ball to Pittman like he did, that's a plus. And also utilizing Jonathan Taylor, that's going to help Matt Ryan. I will say his game was a little so-so for me. 50 attempts, 32 completions, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He could have been much better, a whole hell of a lot better. But again, there are going to be some better matchups for him, and I'm hoping that, you know, he will get better and be a little more accurate and not have to throw the ball 50 times. That is insane for a 37-year-old quarterback who hasn't looked great over the last few seasons. So if you want to consider Matt Ryan, he's another good option. I will say out of these three quarterbacks, Carson Wentz is going to be the best option, especially week 2 with that enticing matchup versus the Detroit Lions. Let's keep it going with the running backs. There are a few running backs that you should consider in picking up this week in fantasy football for several different reasons. Some may be injuries, some may be opportunity, whether that is just volume because the team isn't playing well and they're getting blown out, or just really taking over other people's roles. So one of the top ads this week coming up should be Darrell Henderson with the Rams. He shocked the hell out of everyone and started versus the Bills and played over 80% of the snaps. He out-touched Cam Akers. 13 attempts, rushing attempts for Henderson to only 3 rushing attempts for Cam Akers. That's insane. Although I feel like he was inefficient. 13 attempts for 47 yards is very inefficient. But it was against arguably the number 1 defense in the NFL, the Buffalo Bills. So don't even worry about that. But if he's going to be the starter, he shouldn't be on waivers. I'll tell you this, long term, this backfield is going to aggravate the hell out of people because we don't know what McVay wants to do. He wants to see more out of Cam. I'm not sure what Cam is doing right or wrong, maybe in practice, but he didn't have a lot of opportunities for me to really gauge what he is doing wrong for him to not truly be on the field, other than maybe Henderson is playing better in practice, picking up blocks that maybe Cam hasn't been able to pick up. But again, this is going to be a crazy situation with this backfield. But if Henderson is going to continue to outsnap Akers the way that he did, then Henderson again should not be on waivers. And he had 5 targets, which he caught all his targets for 26 yards. Again, it was extremely shocking to see Cam not involved. I figured it would be a committee. This wasn't a committee. It was Henderson's backfield versus the Bills. And again, he wasn't that bad considering the team he played. We're talking about the best team in football, arguably on the defensive side of the ball. And you got to factor in the offensive line was terrible. Stafford was terrible, was just really bad. So I'm not going to look at the 13 attempts for 47 yards and really just say, oh, he was awful with his yards per carry, because it was a lot of challenges for him. So I'm going to say he wasn't as bad considering all of the challenges. Now for Cam, again, it's just shocking to see that he simply barely paid. He barely got on the field, and that is the crazy part. We all know he looked horrible last season in the playoffs. I don't believe it was a good move for his career for him to come back from that injury. He should have stayed out the whole season and just took the time to recover, even missing the Super Bowl, because again, that decision may have jeopardized his career in regards to being the starting running back with the Rams, because again, didn't look great, probably was not 100%, and should have just not came back. But on the other hand, Henderson looks like the lead guy. And again, if the lead guy is on waivers, you don't leave a starting running back on waivers, because things will get better for this offense. Key factor is hoping that that offensive line is able to play better. Another running back you should be checking for and putting that claim in on waivers is Khalil Herbert with the Bears. I don't care if David Montgomery had 21 snaps, 21 rush attempts. Khalil only had 9, but Khalil looked a little bit better. I will say it's going to just be hard sometimes because, again, although the Bears may have won that game, their offense looked a hot mess. Justin Fields didn't look great. So if you're the opposing defense, load up the box. Montgomery's not gonna do anything. But again, when Herbert was in, he was productive. 9 for 45 and a touchdown, which is great. He had a more efficient game with his opportunities than Montgomery. So if I have Montgomery, I'm definitely going to be in the business of making sure that I secure Herbert. And, they said, prior to the season, you was hearing things like they don't really know if Montgomery is a fit. I don't even think they know what the hell they're doing, even though they have a new coaching staff. It still is a little just like, don't know what's going on. But to see all of those skill players for the Bears not play well, and again, you got to factor in the rain, but you would think that Montgomery would be a little bit better in the rain. It's just a concern for me, and it should be a concern for you. But if you have Montgomery, you should definitely handcuff him to Herbert in the event that they end up favoring Herbert a little bit more and he starts to see more opportunities and cut into Montgomery's low workload. He'll be a great option. Now, another option at the running back position, and I'll tell you guys this, I stay away from 49er running backs as much as possible because they all seem to get hurt every damn season. They need to carry about 10 running backs on that roster because guess what? They all get hurt. So Elijah Mitchell was having issues during preseason and training camp. He starts the game, looks very good, but then now he's going to be out at least maybe 2 months with a MCL sprain. So now when you're looking at this team, you have the young quarterback in Lance. Kittle didn't play week 1. Don't know what's going to happen with him week 2. So now you're like, well, who the hell am I supposed to utilize at running back for the 49ers? We know that the running backs produce, but I don't feel like any running back over the last few seasons has been as efficient as Mitchell and, say, Mostert, who is no longer in the building. He's with the Dolphins. So next man up is the approach. And if you want to take a chance on Jeff Wilson, by all means do so. Jeff Wilson didn't look great. He was inefficient with his opportunities. 9 attempts for 22 yards. 2 targets, 2 wrecks, 8 yards. That was fine, but 9 attempts for 22 yards is very inefficient. And again, we could say it's the weather, blah, blah, blah. I've seen people perform better. I would say if it's not Mitchell, then don't expect the production at the running back position to be extremely great because they did move on from a few guys. Sherman, they let him go. Hasty, they let him go as well. And, Raheem is gone too. So Wilson is the next man up. And then they may activate one of their the rookies that they drafted. So next man up will be Wilson. So if that is your guy, then pick him up. If you can pick up Herbert or Henderson, that would probably be a better option because, again, I just don't trust those running backs. They all get hurt. I don't know what the hell it is going on out there in San Fran with their running backs and injuries. But here's another running back you should definitely consider is Kenneth Gainwell with the Eagles. He had a good game versus the Lions. We all was able to watch, and we know that he's going to be involved, but he's still the backup. But he's still going to get opportunities to get on the field and make some things happen, and he's able to make some things happen. 5 rush attempts, 20 yards, 1 touchdown, 4 targets, 2 wrecks, and 12 yards. I was actually watching that game, and we know Miles Sanders had a hell of a game. But again, Miles Sanders is always getting hurt at some point during the season. So Kenneth Gainwell, maybe a nice, sneaky, low-key back end of your bench play, especially if you are struggling at the running back position and can't put a claim in for these other guys. Gainwell may have had 2 touchdowns, but Hurts underthrew him on a play going into the end zone. So he could have easily had 2 touchdowns. But again, he is involved 30% of the snaps. So he's starting to get some involvement and looks much better than he did last year. So there are going to be opportunities for him. if you have Miles Sanders, you definitely want to make sure that Gainwell is on your radar in the event that Sanders gets hurt, because you'll see him a little more in the mix. And then Boston Scott was able to get in there, and he even got a touchdown too. So it was just all the running backs involved. But we know that the lead guy is going to be Miles Sanders, but Gainwell is going to get opportunities to make plays. So take a look at Gainwell. And then another ad is Jaylen Warren with the Steelers. And this is definitely for people who have Najee Harris, because, you know, he's dealing with a foot injury. He was dealing with one all preseason and training camp and missed some time, missed a considerable amount of time. He didn't even play overtime. They're downplaying it and saying, it's not that serious. Okay, but as a Najee Harris owner, it's serious for you because he didn't play overtime, and you don't want him to end up missing time and then you don't have a replacement. If you don't want to go for Warren, then consider some of these other options. But I feel like because Harris has been dealing with this foot injury, whatever's going on with his feet since training camp and throughout the preseason, you have to handcuff Harris and Warren in the event that Harris misses time. Not saying he's going to miss time, but this is something that you have to consider because you drafted Najee Harris in the first round, most likely. He was your RB1, and again, he's dealing with some feet issues, which is very important and obviously critical at the running back position. And this is not something that's just new. It's something that's been going on. So you want to have that insurance policy. I don't care if Warren's going to take up a spot on your bench. If you don't have any reliable other options at running back that can come in and produce, then it's going to be next man up. If you can't get one of these other guys I mentioned, it'll have to be Warren. Trust and believe other people will be putting in claims for Warren. And if you have Harris, then you miss out in the event that he ends up not being able to play. So for this week, you need to be monitoring Harris's participation in practice and looking at that injury report and ensuring that you have a plan B in the event he cannot go. Don't wait till Saturday to make your decision. Don't wait till Sunday before the game to make your decision, because if they say, okay, we're going to take a cautious approach and he's not going to play, you don't have a reliable option. So if you don't have reliable options, in the event that something happens with Harris, then you need to be working the wire or making trades. If you don't want to trade away your assets, then again, consider some of these guys. But I highly advise and recommend that if you have Harris, handcuff him. Certain players, you just have to either make sure you have a bunch of reliable running back options in the event that running back can't go, or you need to handcuff them with their backup. And in this case, I would be handcuffing Harris and Warren. Warren got in the game a little bit, only 3 rushes for 7 yards. Obviously, he was more efficient than Harris. Harris didn't have a good game anyways. That Steelers offense just, to me, wasn't great. Mitch, wasn't great, and it just wasn't great. I'll tell you, it just wasn't good, goddammit. I mean, if you have DeJounte Johnson, it was like, damn. But we're hoping that things will get better. They have, I believe, the Patriots coming this week, so I don't know if it's going to get any better, because the Patriots, if nothing else, if the offensive side ain't working, because right now it doesn't look like it's working, the defense typically will play well. So I don't want to come out here and say that the Steelers offense is going to look better week 2, because I don't think it's going to look much better. But if you got Pat, great. Hold on to Pat. But again, if you have Harris, seriously, handcuff him with Warren. Let's talk about some of these wide receivers, because there are a lot of wide receivers out there that can help your team in fantasy football. There are several. The top ad for me is going to be Julio Jones with Tampa. We know that Chris Godwin is going to be out. Suffered a hamstring injury. I honestly get a little nervous when players have their knee issues and Achilles and then, hamstrings, because if it's just too much going on, it's going to be a long season injury wise for that player and for anyone who has that player. But nonetheless, Julio Jones looked really good last night. Him and the GOAT, Tom Brady, had a great rapport. They had a really good rapport going. I know a lot of people probably was thinking, well, it was going to be Gage, but Julio was looking real good out there, and they had him all over the field. He was involved. 2 rush attempts for 17 yards, 5 targets, caught 3 of them, 69 yards. Almost caught a long bomb, which was beautiful. Just kind of, just missed it. But Julio's going to be involved. I do believe he'll be elevated, and it'll be Evans, Julio, and then maybe Gage will start getting a little more involved. But to me, he is the top add at the wide receiver position, and we're just hoping that he can remain healthy. We know that with Julio, we know what he's done throughout his career, and we know with Tom Brady what it really is, an opportunity. Another great add is Jarvis Landry with the Saints. Jarvis had a very good game. He was the wide receiver who got all the yardage. Mike Thomas got the touchdowns. Landry got the yardage. 9 targets for 7 receptions and 114 yards. That's not production you want to leave on waivers, especially if you just want to make sure your bench is a little bit stronger. Again, you don't have to put a claim in for a player just to play them. You may be looking at it from a point of view that maybe your bench is not as strong and you didn't do a good job towards the end of your draft adding and developing your bench. And some of these guys may be able to replace some players on your bench who may not be playing or may have some injuries, which they're not going to be available. So consider Jarvis Landry. Another great ad. And I know y'all not going to like me for this ad, but damn it, I'm going to say it. Sterling Shepard with the Giants. That's right. I'm saying it, damn it. If you watch the Giants game, yes, Daniel Jones made a horrible interception. It was terrible. But if you know nothing else about the Giants, you know that Daniel Jones and Sterling Shepard just have this great rapport. And it's always working until, something happens and Daniel Jones may get hurt or Sterling Shepard may get hurt. Sterling Shepard was having a really good season last year, and then he got hurt. It's not going to be Tony. It doesn't appear, because, hell, he didn't even get a damn target. They gave him 2 rushes. It's like, what? Is that why y'all drafted him in the first round, for him to rush the ball? I know this team didn't draft him, but the old group did. But at the end of the day, he has too much talent for them to just not get him involved. But they're not getting him involved, and they didn't this week. Maybe they're bringing him along slowly. I don't know how slow they're going to bring him on, but Sterling Shepard is Daniel Jones' number 1 target, his number 1 wide receiver. So it should be Sterling Shepard. Although he got most of his yardage on a long touchdown, I don't care. It's production, and it will get better, because I don't think we expected to see a lot of Sterling Shepard, but you also got to understand that Wan'Dale Robinson got hurt, suffered a knee injury. Sterling Shepard is going to be his favorite target. Galladay is not going to be his favorite target. It's going to be Sterling Shepard. They just have that connection, and Shepard is back, and as long as he is healthy, he will produce. He's always produced when healthy. That is something you cannot deny. So again, if nothing else, you're building your bench to make sure that in the event that something occurs, when you look at that bench and may have to put somebody in, you have reliable players. So consider Sterling Shepard. Another great ad is the 2 wide receivers with the Commanders. We have the young rookie, Jahan Dotson, who had a solid game, 5 targets, 3 receptions, 40 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns. I don't believe he'll have 2 touchdowns every game, but again, if you're not looking to add a player to play week 2, but looking to build up your roster, he looked like one of the more ready rookie wide receivers. A lot of those rookies were inactive anyways, and he is playing. And again, he looked pretty good. He may not produce like this every week. I do believe some weeks he may be touchdown dependent, and it may be some times where he's gonna get his 5 targets, 6 targets, and still be able to produce. He's a viable option for you on waivers. And then Curtis Samuel had a really good game, right? 11 targets, which is a lot. He caught 8 of those receptions, and he had 55 yards and 1 touchdown. He had 4 rush attempts for 17 yards. So he had a solid game. Curtis Samuels has always been really good. But again, signing with the Commanders, pretty much injuries was the main reason why he was unable to be on the football field and produce. When healthy, he's a solid wide receiver. So he's on waivers. He's someone you should be putting a claim for because he's going to be involved. They're going to be involved. Both of these wide receivers are going to be involved. So why not have them involved on your bench? And if you need to play them, then you have the option to do so. Another ad to consider. Yes, y'all, I'm bringing my boy Robbie Anderson back in the mix with the Panthers. I am not a fan of Baker Mayfield, and he looked horrible yesterday. However, he managed to get the ball to Robbie Anderson. 8 targets, 5 receptions for 102 yards and 1 touchdown. I'll tell you this, with Robbie Anderson, it's going to be boom or bust most weeks, and he's going to go as that Panthers offense and Baker Mayfield go. Baker may have some solid games, and then he may have some games where it's not that great. I believe the matchup week 2 is going to be a better matchup for Baker Mayfield and the Panthers because they're playing against the Giants. So I do believe there may be some of those long throws. And we all know that is one of the main reasons, if you do play Robbie Anderson or consider him, is for those home runs, which he did when he was with the Jets. It's those throws for like 40, 50, 60 yards for a touchdown, which will get your scoring up there expeditiously real quick. So Robbie Anderson is another player to consider. You got to think a lot of these players, some of them may not be available in one of your leagues, but in another league. So this just giving you several different options to look at and identify which player is going to be best for your team. You may not need any wide receivers. You may need a running back. You may need a tight end. Another wide receiver who should probably be one of your top ads is Devin Duvernay with the Ravens. I don't expect him to be ahead of Bateman. Bateman is, to me, the number 1, but Devin is looking good. He looked really good. 4 targets, caught all his targets with 54 yards and 2 touchdowns. There may be some weeks where he's touchdown dependent. Hell, the wide receivers had a better game than Mark Andrews. That's not going to happen every week. So when it does, just got to hope that you have these guys in your starting lineup. Again, if nothing else, he can be a player who is helping build your bench to make sure that if something happens to one of your starters, it's a player that you can consider putting in, and hopefully he will produce. But that's not a player you want to leave on waivers if he's going to be involved and if the Ravens are going to throw the football a little bit more, because I don't care what nobody say. Kenyon Drake looked terrible, okay? Why the hell wasn't Mike Davis and more involved? He only got 2 attempts, but he was more efficient with his 2 attempts than Kenyon Drake was. I don't understand the whole Kenyon Drake hype. Very inefficient. And it's going to be like that unless maybe get Mike Davis a little more involved, or until maybe Dobbins is able to return, him or Edwards. So they may throw the football a little bit more, which is good for us if we're picking up Devin, if we have Bateman, or if we're looking at Andrews. So again, pick him up. Take a chance and pick him up. And now we're going to talk about some tight ends. This is just the tight end position. Woo! Lord have mercy. Not a lot there. I'm sorry. I don't want to play a dangerous game with any of these daggone tight ends, but Gerald Everett should be added. I don't care what format is at the tight end position. He's going to be involved. He looked really good, looked better than what he did when he was with Seattle. So if you can pick up Gerald Everett, do so. He's got Justin Herbert throwing him the damn football. He's going to look for him. Again, Cooks had a solid season with Herbert. And I think at this stage, Everett is obviously better. So why let this tight end stay on waivers and wait for someone else to pick him up? Be ahead of your competition. That is the goal. Always be ahead of your competition. Everett had a solid game, 4 targets, 3 receptions, 54 yards, and a touchdown. So he outproduced some tight ends who we expected to perform a little better, like Austin Hooper. I don't know what the hell the Titans did with Austin Hooper, but it didn't look like they signed him because they didn't utilize him much at all. But we'll talk about that later on. So if you had Hooper, if you would have played Everett, he's the one who produced. I think Everett is going to be a little more involved, especially if you see a player like Keenan Allen missing some time due to the hamstring. So who else? Mike Williams was like, he was like a ghost. I don't even know if he was there. Was he on the field? Because he ain't play, right? He was there. He was out there in that field, but he ain't look great. So Mike Williams, I'll say. We ain't want to get him confused with Mike Evans. Mike Williams will definitely have to step up a little bit more, as well as Palmer. DeAndre Carter is a serious, sneaky wild card. That's a wild card. I'll throw him in my wild card mix. But again, at the tight end position, you know that it's very hard if you have Kittle and he's not playing, and then you have some tight ends who you drafted this season because you expected them to have bounce back years, and it's looking a little suspect already in week 1. It's not going to be suspect or hit or miss with Gerald Everett. So add Gerald Everett. And then this is a wild card at the tight end position. Lord Jesus, Taysom Hill with the Saints, God damn it. He's a quarterback. He everything, God damn it. If you could put him on your team on defense, he's going to get you some damn tackles. But he's obviously an offensive player, right? Some formats he is, some platforms he is considered a tight end and a quarterback, but he did all his damage as a damn running back, right? Yes, 4 rush attempts, 81 yards, and a touchdown. But again, I don't care if he is tabbed as a tight end. That is production for you, okay? 81 yards and a touchdown is very good production as a tight end, even if he ain't catch a pass. That's crazy. But he's always going to be involved. My biggest thing is if you have Alvin Kamara, he's going to take some touches, some opportunities away from Alvin Kamara, which drives me crazy. But again, if you don't have any options at the tight end position, you can throw him in here. I'm not saying he's going to do this every week, but it looked like a genius if you had him this week and played him, and he had 81 yards and a touchdown for you. Some wild cards that you should consider. These are wild cards. These are my practice squad players. And I mentioned him in a video earlier, like last Friday. Greg Dortch. I'm not so sure if I'm pronouncing his name right. With the Cardinals, wide receiver. So Rondale Moore did not play. Who knows if he's going to play this week? When you start having issues with hamstrings and things like that, those are tricky, and especially as a wide receiver. So I was like, hey, here's a wild card. Try him. Some people said they would prefer to take a chance on Andy, who I was hoping they got Andy involved too, but it's like, what's the problem? Get Andy involved. But no, it turned out to be Greg. He had a better game than all the damn wide receivers on the Cardinals, because I at least thought Hollywood was gonna, I'm like, Hollywood's no. I'm like, what the hell? Yeah, the Chiefs look a whole lot better. on defense as well. Obviously, look really good on offense. But it was like, what? Like, really, Cardinals? Is that what y'all was able to do? Yes, that is exactly what they was able to do. And Greg benefited from it. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 63 yards. Not saying he's somebody you gonna, start, but he's a player you can kind of take a look at if they don't, if more cannot go. And then I don't know, like I said, I don't know what the hell going on with Hollywood not getting involved. I think Ertz wasn't great. And I believe he, it's like, what the hell is going on with the Cardinals? I don't even know what to say about them. But what I'm saying is this is a wild card ad. You'll look great if it works, or you look crazy as hell. Either way, sometimes you have to take a chance. And he may not be the guy that's going to get you 20, 30 points, but he looked really good in preseason, which is why I wasn't surprised that he was able to make the 53-man roster. He looked really good. And again, he had the opportunity week 1. Hell, he looked better than all them damn wide receivers on the Packers. Packers, y'all better get better at this wide receiver thing. Y'all could have had Greg Dortch. Another ad, which is just, like I said, I was going to talk about this, the Titans. So I just want to understand, why the hell is Kyle Phillips out-targeting every damn wide receiver on the team? You traded A.J. Brown, right? They traded A.J. Brown, and you got Robert Woods, and he wasn't involved much. I just don't, it's a head scratcher. Austin Hooper, again, wasn't involved. And it's just like, this young man had 9 targets, 6 receptions, 66 yards. He was all over the damn field. But if he's going to be somebody that they get involved and he's a part of the rotation and he's playing and he's getting the targets that he did, then why not take a look at him? Because again, he's getting the volume, which makes him a solid ad. Also, I talked about him a little bit earlier, DeAndre Carter with the Chargers. He was very much involved. He was more involved than Williams. And again, with Keenan Allen maybe missing time, he may be an option. Palmer is supposed to be the guy that everyone's feeling like is going to have that breakout year. Well, Carter was very much involved. Now, long term, especially in a dynasty league, he doesn't have that much upside, but he can be a guy that 1 week, hell, maybe next week, if you played him this week, was a genius. But again, these are like the craziest things where you see players who you're like, Kyle Phillips, what? It's like Noah Brown with the Cowboys. He had a better game than CD. And I'm like, damn. Now, you already know that Gallup is not going to be ready. You make inactive Jalen Tolbert. And it's like, what the hell was y'all thinking? Who was y'all thinking y'all was going to throw the ball to? Did you not think they was going to double and triple team CD? Like, hello? It was just a mess. But I'm still not saying pick up Noah Brown, because I do believe if the Cowboys still consider themselves the team in the NFC East, which I don't think so, with Dak being out, they need to go and get a quarterback. Like, really consider either trading for a quarterback, and there's not a lot of quarterbacks I would say trade for who will give them a solid opportunity to still compete in the NFC East, or they need to sign someone. I know Cam Newton is still out there. Not saying he's about to come here and be Dak Prescott, because he's past that elite stage of his career, but I do believe he would be better than what they have currently in Cooper Rush. And no, I don't believe they should go for Mason Rudolph, but I do believe Jimmy G's available. But with the way Trey Lance looked, they may need to hold on to Jimmy G. But anyways, y'all know what it is. It's tough, but the Cowboy players, it's going to be tough to trust those guys week to week without Dak being the starting quarterback. Leave some comments and let me know what players you are considering adding this week in fantasy football. Y'all make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have a lot of great content, which is going to help you every week prepare for your opponent. I'll see y'all on Wednesday. We have a great start sit episode. We'll talk about some players you should start and some players you should sit. See y'all on Wednesday.
Thanks for listening to the Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Blown Coverage Fantasy Football Podcast.